Hey, this is Tiqqle, and in this video we're talking about 9.1 and the Soulbind changes that are coming out. There's some additional entries on the bottom of each Soulbind for every single covenant, and we're going to be focusing on Enhancement Shaman PvP in this video. We're going to be talking about what I expect to be the best build for that going into 9.1, given where things currently are. Now, there might be additional conduits added, but we'll see. That does, like, we're kind of waiting around since the last announcement regarding honor talents and other changes coming out for 9.1, and we've yet to see some things that were talked about. Now, specifically for Enhancement Shaman and PvP, we'll talk about where do I think they're going in 9.1 with in terms of Covenant, as well as the Soulbinds and what's changing there. You'll get to see what's new and what builds I'm expecting to be the best for PvP specifically. So you'll see the timestamps down below. And if you do like Shaman content, make sure to hit that sub button, that like button, as we're putting out Shaman content for all the specs of Shaman PvE and PvP non-stop. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Enhancement Shaman. Well, Enhancement Shaman have had a pretty good run in 9.1. In PvP specifically, they've had some top tier comps, including specifically Turbo. And everyone kind of rolls their eyes at Turbo. While there's a lot of comps that people roll their eyes at, that means that that's usually a pretty darn good comp. And that specifically comes from a few things. The Enhancement Shaman's Doom Winds ability, which people are unfortunately learning how to counter that now. It's also coming from the Covenant and the Covenant ability Chain Harvest, which is the ability from Venthyr that is crushing people with huge crits, especially as people are getting way more gear, way more verse now, and it is critting more and more because of people's stats getting kind of at the end game, and what you're going to see is some conduits that you should know about by now, but that increase the crit rate of that even further as that eye level gets up of that conduit. Now, if you don't know this, Venthyr Chain Harvest ability is it is incredible, and it does the most damage of all the things that Enhancement Shaman does. There's two ways that Enhanced Shaman kill people. One is Doom Winds Ascendance, or just Doom Winds, or the second is Chain Harvest. Chain Harvest is a huge damaging ability, hitting 5 targets, potentially, and then also healing 5 allies. Also very good for Mythic Plus, killing prides and helping your healer out. And it reduces its cooldown by 5 seconds for each time it crits. 5 enemies, 5 friendlies, potentially, which means overall it could go down by 50 seconds from its 1.5 minute cooldown, which means that it could go down to 40 seconds. Now, all that being said, it is such a high damaging ability that it is pretty much always at the top of your damage, even though you're only pressing it every 1.5 minutes. It crits for up to like 20k I've seen on the higher end, and I'm almost surprised people aren't running Sky Fury, but I bet they will go into 9.1 instead of Bloodlust or Thundercharge. Thundercharge even reducing the cooldown on it, which is pretty helpful. But let's go ahead and talk about, I mean, that's going to be the Covenant. The Covenant for PvP is Venthyr. I have tried Night Fae. I have tried Necrolord, and it just pales in comparison. Even though Necrolord has great defensive fleshcraft and some passives, and although Night Fae has mobility and it even has some kind of cheeky abilities scaling off of your mastery, the Covenant abilities themselves from those other factions don't carry the weight that Chain Harvest does in their damaging rotation and burst. Chain Harvest is just a beast. So I do not expect that to change at all. Chain Harvest is actually going to become even crazier. And I shouldn't say crazier, even stronger and more important that you go that for PvP. Now, this video isn't about the disbalance between covenants. As we all know, you have to go certain covenants if you want to be at the top playground for PvP, and Enhancement Shaman is no different than a lot of other classes. You have to be Venthyr. I'm sorry, but you do for PvP. Even in PvE, these changes that are happening in Venthyr are going to even make it even more of a pillar of where people are going to gravitate to for Enhancement Shaman. Let's go ahead now and talk about these changes. I will pull up first Nadia, the first Soulbind you've ever gotten, the most aggressive one people have been taking since day one. And we'll go ahead and talk about the changes there and the build that I think that this is still the most aggressive Soulbind tree that you could go. Now, let's go ahead and look down here at the bottom. There were additional conduit slots being put here, Soulbind slots. Everyone's getting an additional potency. You also get a choice between two abilities, and each of them have either an endurance or a finesse conduit there. Now, frankly, shamans don't really have too much choice with their endurance ones. They have 3. One of them is related to Ankh, so no one takes that in PvP. Then you have a healing one, and you have an Earth Ally one. Both of them incredibly powerful, especially when healing is so big for the Enhancement Shaman in PvP. Now, frankly, we'll look at the abilities first, but the potency we'll talk about and why I'm in this build right now. But Sinful Preservation is one of the options you have going into a finesse slot. That is health potions and health stones grant you an absorption shield equal to 50% of the amount healed. Now, that's actually huge if you're playing with a Soul Stony Warlock, but otherwise, I don't know what else that's going to really help you with, other than for PvE, which, again, I still don't see that being that, you're not going to gravitate to that unless you're needing to survive huge damaging one-shots or something like that. Now, this other one, Nimble Steps, enemies within 8 yards are slowed by 10%. If you fall below 35% health, enemies within 8 yards are rooted for 4 seconds. This can only occur once every 60 seconds. Now, things like this are kind of weird and you might not think they're that good, but there's one in Necrolore that fears you for 4 seconds. It's a big, big deal. So this root could actually be quite good, especially because we have Ghost Wolf and things that could potentially get us out of there quickly. But those are the 2 ones. And then the last ability, which is kind of the capstone here, as I've heard it been referred to, Fatal Flaw. When the haste effect from Euphoria ends, gain 10 seconds of 20% increased critical strike chance or verse. Whichever you currently have more of. So in PvP, we're likely going to get plus 20% verse. Now, some people may say, but I want 20% more crit. Well, in PvE land, you absolutely will. And that will absolutely help you get more Chain Harvest out more often because it will make you crit more, etc. And honestly, in PvE and Mythic Pluses and Raids, this will be a great window to pop your Doomwind's Ascendants, and the spiking damage will be nuts. But for PvP land, we all know we're stacking versatility above all else, especially because it gets an additional bonus by wearing 2 PvP trinkets. So for this, it's going to give us 20% more verse. That is going to scale. Remember, it's going to scale additionally from those trinkets, so you're going to get even more power. When you get this proc, that's when you're going to be Doomwindsing, that's when you're going to be Chain Harvesting, and that's going to do a plus 20% additional damage with some on top, right? This amplified verse will also help you defensively, but really we're thinking offensive because that's the only thing you can really time with it is you know when it's coming up, because Euphoria is a haste buff that you get for 10 seconds, and when that drops, you're going to get this verse buff. That's going to be incredibly powerful, especially linked with your cooldowns. Enhanced Shaman's damage is really 100% out of the cooldowns, unless you're going LA Blast build with Frost Witch, which has been talked about, and I actually think that might come into the meta more, but this is definitely more important. This is important. 20% is huge. That's a lot. Because think about it, you had, at the beginning of this X-Pack, you were probably getting to 20%, ish. Now people are at 30%. But now you're going to get an additional 20%. That's crazy. So let's go ahead and talk about the other Soulbinds and conduits that I have in here, right? Number one, I'm expecting that Doomwinds will still be king. That might not be the case. Hot Hands could make an appearance with Lava Actuators, maybe, but doubtfully. And Frost Witch will be around. I just don't know how good it's going to be because people are starting to shut down Doomwinds, which is pretty depressing when it happens. So Unruly Winds, of course, and guys, the item levels are going to keep going up of these, so that might change how important they are or not. But this is, of course, when Fury Weapon has a chance to trigger a 3rd attack. This is one that you might not have thought was that good, but frankly, it's not even that this one's godly. It's more that the other ones are poo-poo cheeks. People were running Spiritual Resonance. When you would use Bloodlust, you'd get Spirit Walk, which would break you out of roots, but it's just not, people aren't using Bloodlust because the mana cost, and we're so core on using our mana for healing, it's not even worth it. So this is cooldown of Tremor, Earthbot, and Capacitor reduced by 7 seconds. Cooldown reduction is just good. It's not that this is a game changer, but it's just value, right? Being able to Tremor more often, being able to Earthbind more often, being able to Capacitor more often, like, okay. So that's that. We're going to take the self-healing one for Healing Surge. We're going to take this one, Maelstrom Weapon stacks, increase the damage or the healing of the next cast thing. Kind of for the healing, but still. We're going to go this now. This was one that was borderline maybe better than Focus Lightning, and our crit stat is going to go up more than it has before, but this is the critical strike chance of your Chain Harvest is increased by 13%. Very good. I mean, again, like I said, Chain Harvest is critical to our rotation and our burst and our kill windows. And this is now your, of course, everyone knows this one. Earth Elemental increases your maximum health by 29%. Huge. Very important as a big cooldown there. So this is definitely the more aggressive tree. And again, with Doomwind still being around, that's what you're going to be probably going. But there is another build that I'll walk through, which is the General Draven tree, which did have some changes as well, of course, like these additional ones down here. I'll go ahead and review those first. This one is any overhealing done to you will heal you for an additional 15% of the whole overhealing amount over 6 seconds. This means if I self-heal over 100%, or I get healed through over 100%, like maybe they're prepping me to, I'm about to take a huge amount of damage, they're going to overheal me a bit, this will put a hot on me. Not amazing. I don't know how effective it's going to be, how important it's going to be, but that's not terrible. Or the other one is while below 50% health, Door of Shadows cooldowns reduces by 50% more. Now, I will be honest, this Endurance Conduit usually I would say is more important than the Finesse, but we already have 2 Endurances in this tree. That's one of the things about this tree I liked early on, was the fact that it had Endurances easy to grab. Now, the last one is each nearby enemy trembles at your presence, increasing your damage and healing done by 1%. And reduces the damage taken by 1% up to 3 for maximum of 3 enemies. That means I'll have a 3% damage reduction on me at all times if there's a pet or if they're all 3 next to me. Otherwise, it'll be 2% damage reduction. And then I'll have increased damage by 2%, 3% potentially, or maybe even more if adds work into this. But yeah, up to 3 enemies. So I guess it's 3%. But this is something that could be pretty good just as an overall damage increase. Now, this tree generally is thought to as being more of a survivability tree, more dampening. Because of Service and Stone, damage taken below 40% is reduced by 10%. And then there's a lot of things here, but that's that. And then there's this, standing still for 4 seconds, which is like a full kidney shot, grants you 10% increased stamina and 4% increased healing. You come out of a kidney, you have increased healing, increased health, you can heal yourself up. And those 2 things are kind of the more defensive tree. Now, frankly, this is still pretty decent. 3% increased damage, 3% reduced damage taken. But there's also this one that I think, while you're above 80% health, you gain 1% primary stat, stacking 4 times. So you get 4% agility just flat. And that could be pretty okay for PvE, especially if you're not rolling cooldown, like kind of rolling in and out of the haste crit windows of Nadia. This could be kind of decent. But frankly, for PvP, I really expect, again, the same conduits to be the breakdown that you're already seeing Enhancement Shamans use now, especially for this tree. And I definitely see this overhealing one being an additional helper, but maybe not that game-changing compared to 20% verse increased dam. But this is the tree that I expect people to go if they're a little bit more defensive, if they're playing a little bit more scared, maybe. You know, you could go this path as well. I did take this for some time, where if you use Door of Shadows, you get a 15% shield. People usually will kick that shadow spell, so then you can cast a hex or whatever else you need to do. But yeah, so that's that. And let's go ahead and go to Theatar. I've seen some people rock and roll this, especially for more mastery builds. Let's go ahead and look at the 3 new abilities down here. When Soothing Shades activates, Tubbins and Gubbins each offer you a cup of tea, healing you for a certain amount over 1 second and reducing the damage taken by 5% while standing in the shade. This one I don't see that great. Damage reduction by 5 seems good. The heal seems okay. I don't know how effective that'll really be, but it says for 1% health every 1 second while standing in the shield, and the shield is going to last for 12 seconds, so that's 12% HP. But I don't see that being that great, especially positionally. I don't see it that great. This is while you're well fed, gain speed and avoidance. Again, kind of weird one. It definitely seems PvE oriented, but kind of niche. And last one, once per day, you can speak with Theatar in Sinfall to obtain a Duke's Mad Tea, increasing your primary stat by 3% or haste or crit or verse. This is kind of RNG, and I don't even know if it works in Arena. We haven't been able to test that on the PTR yet. But this was a tree kind of more focused on mastery, which you would think maybe would help you with the Ellie Blast build, but I don't know. I don't really see that as being kind of core yet. I think it could be maybe with more secondary stats, more mastery stacking, but you're going to have to go all in either way, depending on the build that you're going to be taking. But I would really recommend Nadia for offense, the General for defense. And again, I think this is definitely the play for Enhanced Shaman. I don't see Chain Harvest going away unless they did a nerf. I don't see other ones being that viable. People have said I've gotten huge lightning bolts out of my Necrolord. Yeah, but like it's not a 20k Chain Harvest on 3.5 people like in Arena. You know what I mean? This is executing people, right? Compared to other ones, which is just doing more damage. Enhanced Shaman is not a great dampener. It's a burster in burst windows. The dampening aspect, you have 4 heals, then you're out of there, right? So it needs to have that pop, and I think this will give it more pop. I think 20% increased damage along with Chain Harvest and increased crit and conduits could help us be a huge spender, and this could just dumpster people, similar to Ret Paladin. Not quite the one shot, but I think it's going to get a little bit closer, I guess. But yeah, if this scaled off mastery, it would actually be crazy. But yeah, so once again, Venthyr is the go-to in my opinion so far based on the current state of things. There's a lot more changes expected for I would say for PvP, a lot of honor talents for classes and specs that haven't happened yet. Like for example, Enhanced Shaman has not gotten anything new or had things removed. It will, but in due time. And conduits haven't been changed. I thought that was going to be something that we'd be seeing soon, but not yet. So we'll have to see what happens. We haven't even seen the legendary. Actually, we haven't even seen the legendaries actually for Shaman at all. So a lot of stuff to come. But I wanted to give this video to give you an overview of what I expect for enhanced PvP and what you can expect maybe by 9.1. So with that being said, guys, I want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you do like it, and if you're part of that 75% that hasn't subbed to the channel yet, hit that button down below. And we'll see you on Twitch every single day, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we actually have a spooky stream coming up this Friday, which is May 7th. It's going to be kind of nuts, so if you want to stop by for that, that'll be going on. And we have RBGs helping people get Mythic Plus keys done. We got it all going on every day, so come by and ask for the schedule, and we'll help you out, or just join the Discord and ask when we're doing keys, RBGs, arenas with viewers, scary streams, whatever it is. So we'll see you in the next one, guys. Thank you so much for the love. Take care.